In this tape, and in this section of the course, we'll be further exploring the wanting approval. As you remember, we started in this program focusing on feelings, and now we've taken it a step further to also focus on the wants. And in the last tape, we were focusing on the wanting to control. And hopefully, since you've listened to the last tape, you've been starting to notice the wanting to control in your life and let it go. Now we're going to spend some focus on the wanting approval. And just to review, there's nothing wrong with having love or approval or admiration or caring. And there's nothing wrong with giving it. What we'll be letting go merely is the wanting. Whenever we want anything, we feel like we lack it. So the feeling of lacking love or approval is really what we'll be letting go of. Also, wanting approval feels a little different than wanting to control. Wanting approval is a gimme feeling. It's a feeling incomplete. It's a feeling being very concerned about how others think about you. So we'll be focusing on that and exploring it more deeply and letting it go. So allow yourself to focus inside and get yourself comfortable. And remember, this can be done with eyes open or eyes closed. So unlike many other tapes, it's okay with our tape series that you've been listening to do it even while you're driving a car or doing something else. Because one of the purposes of these tapes is to get you into the habit of letting go of your limitation even when you're in intense activity. So you can be driving and releasing and walking and releasing and talking and releasing, or anything else that you find yourself doing. You can also be letting go of the limitation that's presenting in that moment. So allow yourself to think of a time, or picture a time, where you were wanting approval. And just allow yourself to feel what it felt like to want someone to care about you, or notice you, or like you, or approve of you, or love you. And could you really welcome that wanting approval into your awareness? And then could you let it go? Could you let go of wanting approval? Focus on that same situation or another situation in your life where you were wanting approval. Or maybe you felt like someone was disapproving, or didn't like you, or didn't care, or didn't give you the acknowledgement that you deserve. And again, allow yourself to notice what it feels like to want approval. As you get better at becoming aware of what the wanting approval feels like, it will be easier to recognize it in your life and let it go. And could you welcome that sense or that wanting of approval? And then could you let it go? Now see if there's a specific person in your life, either your personal life or your business life, whose approval you often want. You recurringly want their approval. And could you let yourself want their approval for a moment? Welcome it into your awareness. And then could you let it go? Now focus on that same person or someone else in your life whose approval you're wanting. And let yourself feel the wanting approval. Really fully welcome it into your awareness. And could you let it go? Now think of a time where you were wanting your own approval, where you were giving yourself some disapproval or withholding approval from yourself. Maybe you did something that you didn't like, you said something that you thought you shouldn't have said, maybe you didn't accomplish something that you thought you should have accomplished. Or maybe someone else said something about you and you really took it to heart and started disapproving or disliking yourself. But just really let yourself feel what it feels like to want your own approval, to withhold approval from yourself. And could you really welcome that wanting approval into your awareness? And then could you let it go? Focus on the wanting your own approval again. Either think of a specific situation where you were disapproving of yourself, or maybe it's an overall habit that you experience all the time, this withholding love or approval from yourself. And just let yourself feel what it feels like to want your own approval. And could you let it go? Now let's take our exploration of wanting approval even deeper. Wanting approval is a program or a belief system, a way we see the world. It's more than just a wanting. It really colors our perception of reality. So there are recurring thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. There's an overall pattern in your life. There are some commonalities and there's some unique differences from person to person. So what are some of the recurring thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that come from wanting approval for you? You might think something like, it's not my fault, don't blame me, or they're not paying attention, they don't care. You might feel hurt, exposed, vulnerable, ashamed or embarrassed. You might just want to do whatever you can to get them to pay attention. You might say yes when you really mean no. You might act nice. You might give false compliments. But whatever it is that you do, you feel, or you think when you're wanting approval, just allow that to come into your awareness. And see how it feels to want approval. See what that feels like inside. And could you just allow that wanting to be here, the wanting approval? And then could you let it go? Could you allow it to release? Again, allow yourself to become aware of some of the recurring thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that come from the wanting approval. You might act sweet. You might feign interest. You might do a host of things in order to get them to pay attention. You might act like you know, even if you don't. You might even do negative things just so they'll look at you. But whatever it is that you think, you feel, or you do when you're wanting approval, see how that feels inside. See what it feels like to want approval. And then again, allow yourself to become aware of some of the things that you do, some of the things that you think, and some of the things that you feel when you're wanting approval. The more you can become aware of this, the easier it will be to identify the wanting approval directly when it comes up into your awareness. Releasing on a wanting approval, wanting control, and wanting security, as we've already spoke about, is a very fast shortcut to cutting through all limitation. They're the root cause of all limitation. So the more you learn to recognize it in this moment, the easier it will be for you to let it go. So think of some of the other things that you say, you do, you feel, or you think when you're wanting approval. And just let yourself feel the wanting approval. And then could you let it go? Could you just set it free? Now just allow yourself to feel the wanting approval. You can use any of the examples that we just went through, or another situation in your life, or maybe something that has to do with the topic that's your main focus on this tape series. But just really welcome the wanting approval into your awareness. And then could you allow yourself to dive in awareness to the very core of the wanting approval? And even deeper. And deeper still. Allow yourself to go to the heart or the very core of the wanting approval. Go to the point where wanting approval arises from. And then just go a touch deeper. And if there's still some wanting approval in your awareness, could you just allow it to dissolve? Now in a moment, I'll encourage you to put your awareness back on externally focusing. But before you do that, let's look at this a little further. Imagine what life will be like as you let go of wanting approval. When you feel self-confident and self-assured, knowing that people care about you just as you are, and that whether or not they approve of you, you're okay. This is a very real possibility as you let go of the wanting approval. In fact, what you discover as you let go of wanting approval, mysteriously, people will approve of you even more. And I highly encourage you to listen to this tape often and deepen your experience of what wanting approval feels like to feel and what it feels like to let it go. And then most importantly, start noticing the wanting approval in your life. And as you notice the wanting approval, know that you can just let it go. And in that moment, feel better.